Hey everybody, Marcus Chakos here, founder of the Natural Treatment of Arthritis Institute and author of the life-changing book, The Arthritis Solution, Proven Strategies to Prevent, Manage and Reduce the Pain of Arthritis Naturally. And we're going to be discussing within this webinar specifically what arthritis is. And I want to really not just discuss what arthritis is and discuss the many different forms of arthritis. You can get the details of that in the book. However, what I want to do is give a different perspective on arthritis as well as the conventional perspective on what arthritis is, so that you can broaden your understanding and make a more informed decision. But let's start with the conventional perspective of what arthritis is. So arthritis, generally speaking, has been considered a degenerative change of the joint, particularly joints of, say, the knees, the back, the hands, etc. And it's a debilitating condition associated with age. But again, that is a conventional view that really does not encapsulate arthritis, nor does it define arthritis, and in fact it's not specifically accurate. Arthritis itself is not a single disease, but a term that includes over 100 different medical conditions that affects the musculoskeletal system, particularly the joints. So what we're dealing with here is the different forms of arthritis, and there are many different forms, a few of which we'll cover within this particular program. But it's not just the joints that are affected, it's also organ systems, skin, and inflammatory and immune processes that are involved with arthritis. So it is a far more complicated picture than generally thought of in the public, and we want to expand and explore that to some degree here. So arthritis derives from the Greek word arthron, meaning joint, and Latin meaning itis, which means inflammation. So in essence, it's inflammation of the joint. Arthritis, joint inflammation, because when you think of itis as inflammation, tonsillitis, appendicitis, these are all inflammatory conditions. In this way, arthritis is an inflammatory condition, and the inflammation is localized to a joint, arthron meaning joint, so it's a joint inflammatory condition. And because there are many different types of arthritis, for example, osteoarthritis, we're dealing with the inflammatory and arthritic process of a joint such as a knee, versus rheumatoid arthritis, which again can be an inflammatory condition of a joint such as in the hands, but it also has a more expansive perspective in terms of it can be associated with fever, viral infections, and a whole range of other processes. So while it is a joint inflammatory condition, it's not purely localized to the joint, nor is it a specific or definitive degenerative process, because you can also have juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, so an arthritic form where the body is breaking itself down in younger people. So again, it's not exclusively age related, and it's not defined by age, because there are age population people that don't have arthritis. But it is an inflammatory condition. It is a degenerative condition, and it usually, though does not exclusively, localize itself to the joints. But for most people, their understanding and perspective of arthritis is what they either themselves have experienced or have seen in others, where they see the joints starting to misform and change shape, movement becomes more difficult, movement becomes painful, labored and restricted. And that's generally what arthritis is thought of as. But as I said, it goes well beyond that, and it's far more expansive. And currently, arthritis it's almost epidemic in reality, because we also have an aging population. It is becoming more prevalent, and it's affecting 1 in 5 Australians. And again, these statistics would be consistent in any of the Western countries, United Kingdom, America, etc. All of these places would be affected commensurate to the 1 in 5 people that we find here in Australia. But this is dramatically increasing, according to the Arthritis Queensland Association, simply because of that aging population and the lifestyle choices that we're experiencing. So the degenerative inflammatory process of arthritis, very present in today's society, almost epidemic, and is also increasing. So we're now going to talk about arthritis and share some information here on what arthritis is, so you can understand that before we explore a little bit more deeply. So there are a number of different forms of arthritis, and here in this presentation I'm not going to discuss all of them. The most common ones we'll discuss. So what's osteoarthritis? Osteoarthritis is the most common form of arthritis, and when people think of arthritis, invariably they're thinking of osteoarthritis. And osteoarthritis is a wear and tear condition, particularly after 40 years of age, where you see breakdown of bone tissue, cartilage tissue, and connective tissues such as the joint menisci or tissue between joints. And with that breakdown, you get the deterioration of that bone and loss of mobility, loss of stability, increased pain, further inflammation, and the result is deformity in the tissue and dysfunction of the tissue. And they're the two most common outcomes of arthritis: deformity and dysfunction, as well as the pain element. So how is osteoarthritis occurring? And again, most people think in terms of, well, it's an age-related condition. As you get older, your bodies break down, there's wear and tear. And to some extent, this is true because you do find it in the aging population, but it's not because it is an age-related condition. It is because of what happens in the time that people have allotted to them. Because I've got x-rays of a 79-year-old who has no arthritis. And what that means is, well, how can she at nearly 80 years of age have no arthritis when I also have 40-year-olds with arthritis? What's happened in those distinct cases that 40 years apart have different conditions? And the answer is, again, if you are traumatizing your joint, if you are wearing your joint more rapidly because the sports that you play or the job that you do or injuries that have occurred, then you do more rapidly create the accumulation of damage, and that can lead to early degenerative changes. And that's often what happens with the younger generation. And equally, if you've cared for your body, made positive, beneficial lifestyle choices, you can minimize the impact of trauma and damage to your body and have a healthier spine or series of joints when you're older, and therefore not have the condition. But generally speaking, osteoarthritis is present in the aged population from 40 above because they've accumulated these physical traumas. And what's happened is, and it can happen in any joint, whether it be knees, feet, hands, spine, all of the joints are subject to osteoarthritis. But what's happened is you've invariably traumatized or put extra load or worn joint material away. So the joint consists of the bone, but a covering of the bone is, there's a layer of what's called synovium, which is a synovial membrane, which is a particular frictionless membrane that allows the joint to slide and glide. Then outside that, you have fluid encased within the joint and shock absorbers between, for example, the knee joints and the spine, which is a disc, and that cushions the joint. So you can get degeneration and breakdown of tissue in any of those areas. You can have a meniscal tear in the knee, and that means there's less shock absorbing capacity within the knee, and that means the knee gets greater impact, and you can get compression of the synovial membrane. And if that happens often enough, instead of being a frictionless surface, you can get fissures or small tears in that surface, and that exposes the bone. And when that becomes narrow enough, the bone starts rubbing, and you get the accelerated or advanced states of osteoarthritis and degeneration. So that's why it's considered a degenerative or age-related condition, as all of those tissues wear down or wear away or are traumatized and experience breakdown and disrepair. So in osteoarthritis, in that situation, you can see, well, if the body could heal those processes and was able to overcome those traumas, then there wouldn't be the necessity for that to happen. And that's what we're going to talk about later in terms of, well, does osteoarthritis have to happen? But we first want to understand what it is so you can know where you've come to if this is what you're watching this for. So there are many other forms of arthritis, but that's the most common one. Again, easily 90% of people will present with osteoarthritis. 1% of the population generally present with rheumatoid arthritis or experience rheumatoid arthritis. And again, this is more females than it is males with rheumatoid arthritis. And again, while it's 40 plus in the age group as well, it's more targeted to areas such as the hands, even the spine, but it is not purely a degenerative condition where the synovial membrane breaks down from trauma or from impact injuries or overuse, such as osteoarthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is considered an autoimmune condition. And what that means is it's not a trauma, a particular event that has led to the breakdown of the tissue that is happening with rheumatoid arthritis. It's in fact the body's immune system has made some aberrant decision to attack the body, and so there is an inflammatory condition self-generated within the body that is beginning to erode tissue. That's why they call it autoimmune, the body's self-immunity attacking itself. There's many thoughts about, well, where does the origin of this immune sensation come from, or this immune pathway? And people talk about it being a viral infection, a genetic issue, and there are other lifestyle choices that may contribute to this. Suffice to say, what's happening in the rheumatoid arthritis is the immune system, not trauma, is attacking the tissue, and the inflammatory process that derives from that is breaking down the tissue, leading to an arthritic development condition. But unlike osteoarthritis, where it's localized to the joint and the tissues surrounding the joint, the rheumatoid arthritis experience goes a lot further. It can occur simultaneously with other immune system issues and other organ issues, including fever affecting the heart and the circulatory system. Because it's inflammatory, it can have a systemic inflammatory process, meaning it affects the whole body, can affect digestion, so it can be a very traumatic and dramatic inflammatory condition throughout the whole body, affecting a number of systems and organs of the body as well as the joints. And the key signature, even more than osteoarthritis of rheumatoid arthritis, is the deformity that takes place with it. Because you get significant bone erosion and damage to bone and the synovial joints, you get a major change to the tissue function and therefore the deformity of those bones, and that becomes significant to people with rheumatoid arthritis because they lose their independence, they lose their function because of this deformity, and because of the pain it becomes tremendously debilitating. But once again, there is so much that can be done for this condition, so much that allows the body to begin and initiate the healing process again, that this doesn't have to be a lifelong sentence at all. And I just wanted to give you a sense of hope and understanding. If you've come to this with the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, there are things that can be done. There are again more forms of arthritis purely than the ones we just discussed, and rheumatoid and osteoarthritis, while the two most common, there is also juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis is very much the same as rheumatoid arthritis, other than it begins at a younger age. You can see it usually occurs in the teenage years, but what we're having here with the teenage years is the same inflammatory process, the same biochemical changes taking place with rheumatoid arthritis in the young people. And again, it can go into remission. However, it can also progress to rheumatoid arthritis or the non-juvenile forms, creating the deformation or deformity of tissue, the inflammatory and pain processes, and even the organ changes. So while a younger presentation, it's also a very serious and significant presentation. Another thing about rheumatoid arthritis and juvenile rheumatoid arthritis is they can be measured and tested not just by x-rays, which you see with osteoarthritis is the most definitive way of getting a clear diagnosis, but with rheumatoid you see blood changes as well. In rheumatoid you get a measure in your blood test called RF, which is rheumatoid factor. You also have what's called a raised ESR, or erythrocyte sedimentation rate, which is again a sign of inflammatory process. And you can also have raised what are called C-reactive proteins, which is a protein measuring inflammatory process. So we've got all of these measures in blood tests to identify the nature and type of inflammation and therefore categorize the type of arthritis. But we have osteoarthritis principally identified and diagnosed through the practitioner feeling the joint, seeing how the joint moves, and then taking an x-ray. Rheumatoid and juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, again, are differentiated by the different types of presentation on x-ray, but also have blood test changes because of the immune and inflammatory process that are associated with that. And then there are other forms of arthritis that we're talking about here as well, including ankylosing spondylitis. This is again less common than rheumatoid arthritis, which is only 1% of the population. This is a phenomenal type of presentation in that the entire spine begins to form this like melting wax process over the spine as the ligaments begin to solidify and fuse, and you get almost an entire fusing of the spine with ankylosing spondylitis. In fact, ankylosing means to fuse, and spondylitis is the medical word for arthritis or inflammatory process. So we have an arthritic inflammation of ankylosing spondylitis of the entire spine. Again, while it's less common, it's certainly something that we see, and I have clients with this, and we do work with these clients. And again, it happens generally in the younger male population, not necessarily at 40, but in the years preceding that, and we start to see stiffness, immobility, pain on a fairly generalized basis throughout the whole spine. Even the muscles and the tissues are affected because of the global nature of inflammation. And it's only when we look at x-rays we start to see, gee, the whole spine is beginning to become affected. Once again, they don't have a clear idea as to what is causing this process, much like, not that I specifically defined it, but that's certainly they don't have a clear definitive explanation for rheumatoid arthritis, and neither do they for ankylosing spondylitis. but suffice to say, when it occurs, it's very, very significant and progressive, meaning if you don't keep the spine mobile, if you don't introduce function and maintain that function, the prognosis is not particularly strong. Again, there's an inflammatory process and an autoimmune process present with this, and what triggers that is at this point in time unknown, but suffice to say there are things that can do to switch off that inflammatory process and trigger the healing response. Another form of arthritis includes psoriatic arthritis, and this is a really, and my apologies there for the gruesome picture, but this is a significant form of tissue change. Psoriatic arthritis occurs with people with the skin condition psoriasis. In fact, 40% of people with psoriasis will develop psoriatic arthritis. And psoriasis is a red, flaking skin condition. Again, the picture is a massive example of its level of change, but it can occur at any part of the body. Oftentimes the elbows are particularly noticeably affected. Other areas of the body can be affected, and certainly the hands and the feet as well. But what happens is we get a change in the nature of the skin. It becomes, as I said, red, inflamed, itchy, scaly, and that's a condition called psoriasis. Underlying that is an inflammatory process, and if the inflammatory process is severe enough, globalized enough, and again, without necessarily being able to define why, some people then have the inflammatory process actually begin to interfere with joint function, and so you get psoriatic arthritis, where the psoriasis extends from skin inflammation to joint inflammation, and then you begin to get erosion and bone damage secondary to the arthritic change of the psoriasis. Once again, it's an autoimmune process. In fact, it's probably one of the more stubborn forms of arthritic form. Rheumatoid arthritis responds to many of the treatment approaches that we talk about in this program, the Arthritis Solution Program, and it responds positively and well. Psoriasis is slower to respond and seems to have a lot more factors involved to its underlying causes and also the way that it responds. So it needs a fairly significant and detailed approach and a very considered approach, but it too can and does respond favorably as well. But once again, an autoimmune aspect, unknown origin of the trigger, but it does seem to have a lot to do with particularly emotional stresses, factors to be significantly considered and as a trigger process. We do find this active in both males and females and in many different age groups. Another form of arthritis is gout. And while gout generally affects, in most common situations, the toe, we do get, again, the deformation at a progressive nature of the condition. Gout is a form of arthritis consistently found with what is called uric acid crystals. Now, uric acid is a metabolic byproduct within the body. And what is happening when there is uric acid? Again, acidity is an inflammatory process. Inflammation of a joint can, if prolonged, lead to tissue damage, and prolonged inflammation with damage occurring can lead to tissue deformity. So with gout, you have oftentimes purine-rich foods, which are rich foods, and even alcohols can be known as a trigger to this process, but generally speaking, it is male. And they've tended to list it as affluence male, leading rich, excessive lifestyles. People who treat, particularly with alcohol, are triggers for these forms of arthritis. And what happens is you normally get a aching, sore toe that you can't step on, that you can't walk on because it's inflamed and sore. And then you have bouts of remission or easing of that pain, and they become more frequent, more aggressive, and then you can start to, if unchecked and untreated, leading to, acceleration of the bone damage to deformation of the bone and severe arthritic change. And so it doesn't have to happen purely in the toe. It can happen anywhere throughout the body. Again, 40 plus, but particularly in relation to males leading excessive lifestyles, but it doesn't have to be males with excessive lifestyles. Females with simple lifestyles have also been diagnosed and have concentrations of uric acid. So once again, there are factors that we don't know or understand as to what is causing it, but we can very clearly, with blood tests and x-rays, define what is taking place, and the presence of uric acid crystals is particularly indicative of that condition. And so in that regard, it's another form of arthritis that does present itself, less common again than rheumatoid arthritis, which is again a very small percentage of the population, but certainly very present and very real. So those are the most common forms of arthritis, and again, there are many, many more, and within the Do-It-Yourself Arthritis Proven Solution Healthcare Program, we discuss a whole range more. However, I would like you to consider this. Okay, so we know what the different forms of arthritis. We know in many situations that we don't necessarily know what the causes are or why they present, other than, well, it just seems to make sense that arthritis is a natural cause of aging, that, well, we're going to get arthritis as we get older. Well, I want you to consider this. Firstly, does it help to have a diagnosis of arthritis? And secondly, well, if other people don't degenerate or break down throughout the aging process, why should I, or why have I, or what needs to be taken into consideration? And that's a really important question. So let's deal with those in two different points. Well, the moment you have a label of arthritis, and this is possibly why you don't want a diagnosis, and you do need a diagnosis, and you do want a diagnosis so you can have a clear picture of what's happening for you, so you know why what's happening and therefore what can be done. But the issue for many people is once they have that label of arthritis, they go, oh my gosh, that's it. I've got arthritis and there's nothing that can be done. Labels don't always help. When you have, or if you receive the diagnosis of arthritis and you place that label upon yourself as, now I have arthritis, nothing can be done, it's a progressive, deteriorating condition that I have to have for life, and that there's nothing can be done to restore me to health, to an improved quality of life, and it's all downhill from here. That's why diagnosis may not help you, in fact, why it may be what you don't want. But the purpose of this program, the treatment, the Arthritis Solution Program, is to bring to your consciousness, your awareness, a sense of hope and understanding, and in fact anticipation that the body can and does heal, so that you can transcend the negative impact of the label of having been diagnosed with arthritis. The diagnosis does not have to be a sentence to a deteriorating lifestyle. It should be a wake-up call to what do I search out for in order to have hope of healing. And in that way, instead of being labelled with a condition that robs you of hope, it promotes you to a position of desire to seek out a solution that triggers your hope. And that's why I want to share right now with the principle that, well, okay, if there are people out there that are 80 years of age that have no arthritis, well, why have I got arthritis? If rheumatoid arthritis was a genetic factor, then why don't my parents have rheumatoid arthritis? Or if they do, did their parents? Does everybody who has rheumatoid arthritis have children with rheumatoid arthritis? And the answer is no. So the genetic factors aren't the only factors. And if age was a prerequisite or a defining aspect of arthritis, then why are there people with no arthritis in an age population? Or why are there younger people with arthritis when they should be only getting it when they're older? I want you to think about these questions because they do challenge you and they stimulate the awareness that maybe there is more than meets the eye as to what is happening with arthritis. Maybe it's not as clear cut or basic as it seems. As you get older, you get arthritis. There's got to be more to it. And the answer is, or the fact is, yes, that is exactly the case. As you change, as your body ages, it has the capacity or propensity for breakdown if you make choices consistent with breakdown. If you load your body in the wrong way or stress your body through traumatic exercises or accidents or motorbike accidents or car accidents or falls or bumps or spills or excessive training or sports injuries that are traumatic and damaging to the tissue, and you've never allowed yourself to heal. If you eat a highly inflamed and inflammatory diet of primarily acidic based foods such as sugars and wheat and processed and refined food and fast food and junk food and takeout, and if you are under high levels of stress which produce a hormone called cortisol, which is highly inflammatory and actually is known to break down the immune system and degrade the tissue of the body, then all of those factors are interfering with what your body does and can do naturally, which is heal. So maybe, and I think it's more than a maybe, I think absolutely your body can heal. And if it can heal, it needs support in triggering that healing response, reactivating the immunity. And to do that, we need to get out of our own way and we need to support the healing process. And that's exactly what the Arthritis Solution Program shares with you in terms of the tools that are available for you as to what you can do to initiate this healing response and switch off the breakdown of the immunity that many of these lifestyle choices and breakdown of your health has contributed to. So while it's not an ideal diagnosis to receive arthritis, I know and I understand that. It is not a perpetual condition. The body can and does heal. So if you now know that you've got arthritis and that was despairing for you, now you know that it can heal. So does it even matter what the diagnosis was? If you know that your body can and does heal, if you can remove the factors that are interfering with your body's immune system and its capacity to heal, if you can introduce the aspects that facilitate healing, then your body can recover, regenerate and repair, and you can recapture your health and your quality of life now and for the future. And that is a miracle that is happening every day in my practice with my clients. And I'm very excited to share that with you and to bring your understanding of what arthritis is through this webinar. But a greater impact, a more important element of understanding arthritis is having hope that there is something that can be done. So now that you know that you've got arthritis, now that you understand what arthritis is and how it's occurred to some degree within your body and what can be done, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to be like so many people who have listened to their practitioner say, well, you've got arthritis, there's nothing you can do about it, just got to learn to live with the pain? Or, here, take this anti-inflammatory, keep taking it until you can't stand the pain anymore, then come back and see me, we'll give you something stronger. Or worse still, look, just take these medications until the pain gets so bad and then we'll operate. Are you going to leave your health to that type of decision making, to those types of suggestions and recommendations? Or are you going to take action now that you know that the body can and does heal, that there is the possibility for healing moving forward? Because I have x-ray after x-ray and blood test after blood test demonstrating that when you introduce the information within the arthritis solution, the health changes that we recommend there, that the blood changes normalize and your body begins to regulate the healing process, that the tissue begins to regenerate, heal and repair. And as a result of that, you reclaim your health, you regenerate and create healing within your body, and you recapture what was possible for you all along, which is an independent, healthy and quality life. What are you going to do about it? You're going to take action today to do what's necessary to understand and create healing within your body. I want to thank you for again being part of this journey with me. I want to thank you for listening and participating and being willing to open your mind to the possibilities of healing and the direction that you're going to move forward with your condition. If at any point you have any questions, queries or concerns, please email me at info@naturaltreatmentofarthritisinstitute.com.au, and that email's there on the screen, or simply at the naturaltreatmentofarthritisinstitute.com.au website. And if you type Natural Treatment of Arthritis Institute into Google, into the search engine there, the website comes up. You can go to the website and use the website there to gain some further information, and also there is the Contact Us on the website link itself. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being willing and open to learn more about arthritis and create healing in your life, for yourself and for your family, and to make those changes. I wish you every success on your journey. This is Dr. Marcus Chakos for the Natural Treatment of Arthritis Institute. Take care.